Right, I've got a new technical analysis indicator for you called the Lager RSI. Is it any good? Can it make us any money? Well, let's find out. So what is the Lager RSI? Well, it's just a modified version of our old favourite, the RSI, and I've got videos on the RSI that you can watch, and I'll put them at the end of this video for you to follow if you want to learn more about RSI and what you can do with it. But in terms of here, Lager RSI, it's just, like I say, a tool that aims to get rid of the lag, the noise, the whipsaws of the trading signals that you would get off the traditional RSI by applying this Lager process on top of the old favourite RSI. So what is this Lager filter thing? Well, I'm not going to get into the math because it is a bit heavy. It's all based around polynomials. 19th century mathematician Laguerre came up with it, heavily used in physics, but it does provide some benefits for us and this indicator. So to see the difference, let's take a look at the RSI and the LA RSI on the charts. So what have we got here? We've got the S&P 500 index on 3-hour candlestick chart, and that blue line in the middle there, that's our LA RSI, and below that the standard RSI. And I suppose the obvious observation is look at the smoothness of the LA RSI versus the traditional, especially when you're looking around these sort of overbought zones, those whipsaws that could get you in and out of trades incorrectly are, I would say, up on the LA RSI, much smoother and much cleaner to read in terms of entry and exit points. If we're going to get more into the detail how we set up the LA RSI on the charts, but I just wanted to put that in there as the observation just to see how the noise is taken out from the traditional RSI. Its construction is pretty simple. It's similar to the 4-period RSI, the traditional one, plus that Laguerre transformation, and that creates the smoothing, as we've seen on that example, less choppiness. Difference here, rather than the standard RSI, we're looking between a range of 0 and 1 rather than 0 and 100. The only input we've got in here is something called gamma, and that allows you to change the smoothing factor of the indicator, and the larger the gamma, the smoother it is, and vice versa. And also, don't just get stuck with the candlestick or bar charts. I've seen it working on non-standard chart types as well, like Renko, which we'll have a look at an example of later. So let's have a look at setting it all up on our charts. So I'm using TradingView for this example, but it's probably going to be similar across different chart package types, and we're sticking with our S&P 500 on the 3-hour chart. What do you have to do to get this working? Well, you head up to the indicators bar at the top of the page, then type in Laguerre to the box, and you're going to be presented with a whole load of variants that you can use, some good, some not so good. I'm going to pick this one on the top, and that's the one you see on the charts at the moment, but there are, like I say, some other good ones and some strategies as well that we'll see later, so we can ascertain how good this RSI variant is. But once you've clicked on that top one, it goes on to the page, and if we click on the settings, we can see they've actually called it alpha. That's our gamma, and we can change that around. That's the only input, and we can make it more colourful if we want to. But basically, we can see how the noise is taken out, and as it crosses up through that 0.2 we buy, and down through the 0.8 we sell. It's as simple as that. Now, I just mentioned the basic rules. It's a buy if it crosses up through the 0.2 line, and sell if it crosses down through the 0.8. You can play around with those inputs on some of the different variants of the LA RSI on TradingView. And the exit, well, you could do it on the opposite signal or through a predetermined price move, risk return ratio, using another indicator. So some tips for using. On its own, I found the results reasonably inconsistent, and I think you're going to have to add further indicators or tools to improve the odds of success. For example, a 200 moving average, if it's above it, it's a long signal. If it's below it, short, tied in with the LA RSI. Or use different indicators around different inputs like volume or sentiment to confirm the LA RSI, and also check if the gamma input is appropriate for that market and time frame, because it can make a difference, but the rule there is please don't overfit. To give you an idea of the win rate of this sort of strategy just on its own, I applied one of those indicators that we talked about earlier, and again, if you just type in Laguerre in the inputs, scroll down, and I actually used this one by H. Potter that seemed very useful and would allow me to see what sort of win rate we get from this sort of setup. So here I'm in a different chart. It's the US dollar against the Japanese yen. Put it onto 3 hours. It's one of my favorite time frames to trade in these sort of chart types. You can see the Laguerre RSI here. In terms of inputs, we can go down here and we can see what the inputs were. Slightly changed the bands, widened them out a bit. Gamma is down to 0.2. What did that give us? Well, it gave us an okay set of results, nothing special. The important bit there is that win rate, just under 38%. So nothing spectacular and nothing much really greater than, say, using the standard RSI. But with a few tricks played on the charts, you can seriously improve the results. I'll show you one quickly now. If we change the chart to Heikin-Ashi and look how those results change, we've got a 51% win ratio. So that's just a simple example of the LA RSI with a strategy backtest within TradingView that you can all play with. There's other setups in there and strategies to use too, and that gives us a starting point to how to build out a stronger LA RSI based strategy. So let's get into some strategy ideas. So really for this example, I've sort of thrown in the kitchen sink just to give you an idea of what you can do. It's the S&P 500 3-hour chart. I've added on a 200 period moving average. That's to give us maybe a trend filter. If it was above it, I would look for long signals, and below it, short. I've put on a Bollinger Band, which I've slightly adapted if you see the settings here. 50 period, standard deviation 3. That could be used as a potential stop loss when you get into the trade. And also, the Ichimoku there. You could use that as a trend filter. Above the cloud buy, below it sell, and also the crossing of the moving averages there inside that system could be your way in, combined with the LA RSI. And also down below I've got a modified DMI. I've taken out the ADX, and I'm just saying if the red line's above the blue, it's bearish, and I'm only looking for bearish signals, and vice versa for the bulls. So that's just a few ideas on just basic chart types to try and improve the odds of success. Let's have a look at a second example on a different chart type. This time we're into the world of Renko, and we've got Bitcoin on the 1 hour chart, 250 block size. We can see our LA RSI at the bottom. I've put on the 200 period moving average, maybe as a filter for long and short direction. We've got the Bollinger Bands on there for potential setting of stop losses, and I've got this shorter period moving average of 10. Once we get in the signal, maybe down here, say as it comes on up through, we get out when that price crosses back down through the moving average. But as you can see, it works very nicely also on different chart types, in this case being Renko. So let's summarize things. Well, on its own, 35 to 45% win ratio across timeframes and markets could be expected, but I think it needs a trend filter to increase your odds, and adding on other indicators as well on top of that. And as we've seen, switching to a Heikin-Ashi chart can seriously up the win rate. Other ideas, well, you could possibly move the bands wider. We saw an example of that, that 0.2, 0.8, maybe make it 0.15, 0.85. Trade management to me is going to be crucial for the success of this strategy. What markets to trade, you might be asking? Well, it looks like it works well on all different markets and time frames. Do your homework, do your due diligence, and see what results you get. And trade management, think of using percentage moves or another indicator to get out of the trade. I mentioned earlier about a couple of videos I've already produced on RSI. One of them is built into a beginner's guide to technical analysis, goes through all the maths and inputs and ideas behind RSI. The second one is what I've found from using RSI, the sort of tips and tricks to make it a much better tool. So here those links are coming up now.